Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Oh, dude. Oh.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you? Welcome to my home and welcome to my office. Welcome to the morning grind. I thought we could get back to some world building today. So that's what we're going to do. And actually looking at some world building, but actually putting some rules together with the OSE. Let's see. Good morning, Stray. Good to see you. Fantastic to have you here. Good morning. Good morning, Bacon. Good morning, Joel. Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Sable. Good morning. Robert provides an update here. Says AI update converting website to exe using Electron. Users will be able to enter their own API key as soon as all desired game functions are included. This should go to market. Very cool. Congratulations on that. So how is everybody doing? I hope well. Let's see. So I got in last night late, started working here. I got videos. I was working on a video about the cultist shirts, but didn't quite get it finished last night. So I'm looking forward to finishing that today. I started recording audio for the miniatures. So that'll also, I hope, be done today because I'm ready to be done with all of my cultist videos around now. be done with that so we can move on and do some other things, and then also plan out different things for the next like 3 or 4 weeks after we do a Kickstarter and things like that. We're doing what we can on Kickstarter, on YouTube, getting people to watch the Cultists, and okay, it's going reasonably, I guess. So we're just going on. So because I didn't get to sit down and figure out how to or plan out exactly what to do with some of the Cultist stuff on live stream right now, I thought it might be a good idea to take a look, go back and take a look at some of the Rabivania stuff, which I'd like to kind of move to after the Cultists. In the context of the OSE, we've been looking at that recently and quite a bit, because that's kind of fresh on my mind. And so I wanted to go back and take a look at this. See if we can apply something like the OSE to something like Rabivania. Could be a good idea, because we've got this short little world primer here that was intended to have different rule sets, have a different book with different kinds of rule sets in it. So I thought we could take a look at that. It might be easy to do. We will see. Hey, BGD, welcome, welcome. Because I was actually thinking another reason to do this topic is because I was just talking to BGD about like rules conversions for Easy D6 and Index Card RPG, which we'll talk about all of that in just a moment. So I guess that's the... I don't think there's any other updates around. Once I get these other videos out, we'll have some more updates on the Kickstarter and the Cultists and things like that. But I got to finish all that this afternoon. They're only like 20 and 30 seconds long, but they're taking a little while. All right, let's do our breathe and sip before we get into this. So let's do a breathe and sip. I have got some Mountain Dew Zero today in the Witch's coffee, the Witch's brew mug here. So let's do a breathe and sip. Let's take 2 deep breaths in, deep exhale, 2 deep breaths, complete exhale, and then take a sip of our favorite beverage. So here we go. Let's sip. And sip. Ah, all right. That's great. All right, so let me bring this up. We were working on this project during World Building Wednesdays. I said this is World Building Sunday. We used to do World Building Wednesdays, which would be great to get back to. But we had been working on this project during World Building Wednesdays, which is our world primer here. Right here, the Tales of Rabivania world primer for role playing. And the idea had been, well, what we'll do is I'll write like a light, not a whole world book first, not a whole world book, but a light, maybe 10,000 word world primer that can go into a 6x9 book, maybe 48 pages. Might end up being a little bit longer than that because the 10,000 words, it got a little long, as things do. And the 10,000 words might overrun 48 pages. That's not really a problem when you're talking about like something print on demand. But anyway, not a whole 60,000 or 80,000 page world book. But like, what's the world primer? And then the idea was to put different rule sets in it. So because of its print on demand, you can do several different books. So you can do, hey, whatever system you're running, here's a world primer for this world. And then do a few different world primers, a few different worlds in a few different game systems. And that was originally the idea. So let's see, where can some people might not be familiar with Rabivania. Let's see. Well, so I'll give you the introduction here. So the idea originally, we did 5e. So, I had been working with 5e because I had been doing Journey the Tree of Sorrows. And so I did have 5e rules in there. And I'm not a huge fan of 5e, but I think it worked well enough. And of course, in all of these cases, this isn't supposed to be, any of these rule systems isn't supposed to be a definitive kind of, the definitive interpretation of Rabivania, but something that works within a given rule system that you might already be playing to introduce you to the world. So there's going to be some wiggle room in any particular interpretation in a particular system, because especially BGD was just writing me about magic, especially since Rabivania is a low fantasy world. It's a low magic kind of world. And, you know, especially something like 5e is expecting so many different kinds of magic powers and spells and things like that, which is a problem that we ran into when we were doing Journey of the Tree of Sorrows. So I decided to kind of not worry about that. And it's like, okay, this is going to be the interpretation for these different rule systems. And then later there can be a full rule book using whatever the most appropriate system is, or designed system that, you know, represents the world most accurately. But this is intended to just kind of introduce somebody to something using rules they're already familiar with. Well, that was the idea. And then so the cultist doesn't conform to that idea. Which is a problem. This is continuing the theme that we have here, where Heath makes all of the wrong things in all of the wrong order. I develop everything wrong in all of the wrong orders because the cultist doesn't exactly conform to that. But that was intended to be the experiment anyway. That it was experimental on lots of different levels and supposed to take a lot of lessons from it in order to go forward and relaunch a bunch of a series of different things. One of them being Rabivania, that I'm very excited about working on after the cultists. So here is welcome to Rabivania, a chivalric world of mice, weasels, rats, raccoons, and especially rabbits. Rabivania is a low fantasy, low magic world based on 13th century Europe. You'll be stepping into a tumultuous and chaotic time in the history in the history of the kingdom. Players will assume the roles of rabbits who must band together to accomplish quests, root out corruption within the kingdom, and fend off the outside forces that seek to conquer it. Its mythology draws inspiration from Anglo-Saxon and Celtic myth, as well as Arthurian legend. I had something to say after that, but okay. So, one of them. So, not all of the different animals are anthropomorphized in Rabivania. But I thought for this short little world primer here, yes, everybody would just be rabbits. We got 4 different classes. You're rabbits, but in a future kind of world book, you use the ability to play different kinds of creatures as well. So I said, this is the introduction. Some of you may have heard before. But the introduction is, in ancient days, rabbits were but frightened creatures cowering in their burrows in fear of the terrible monster Anorda who ruled the world. But that changed when Clovis, son of stars and thunder, a rabbit like no other, was born. He taught the other rabbits what it meant to be brave, and brought flame from the world fire, smelted metals, and by his paws the first weapons were wrought. With them he slew Anorda and brought her reign of terror to an end, forging a new destiny for all rabbit kind. Rabbits became masters of their fate and established the kingdom of Rabivania, with Clovis ruling as its Vortigern. When armed and armored from the forge of Clovis, the gallant rabbit warriors had little to fear. They carved Rabivania from the wilderness, sending other creatures who would do them harm to flight. The great warrens of the realm were safe under the aegis of Clovis and his mighty thanes. They lived in harmony with the spirits of tree, root, stream, and rock, through the guidance of the druids and witches. But alas, the days of Clovis came to an end, and in that time the memory of great Clovis faded into legend. Without worthy foes to keep them occupied, the rabbits turned their swords upon one another, and terrible battles were waged. The bloodiest of these battles was at Callan Mere. For 3 days the rabbits fought one another, and the lake's waters turned red with blood. But from this death, a new hope of salvation emerged. From within the lake dwelt a beautiful rabbit doe, the mother of the mere. She wept for the death of the rabbits on the shores. When the rabbits of the encamped hosts awoke on the morning of the 4th day, walking in the mists among the dead was the mother's most powerful servant, the first magus of the mist, a doe of surpassing beauty. With her were her servants, the 9 fair paw maidens, the damsels of the royal blood. They were does of great virtue, and each was garbed in white with golden trim. The magus and the damsels shamed the rabbit lords and made them look upon the bodies of their fathers, brothers, and sons who had been slain in battle. The magus told them that the mother in the lake, told them of the mother of the lake, in the lake, how she loved them, and how her heart was breaking to see such death. The hearts of the rabbit warriors removed, and they knelt down to worship the doe within the mirror. Thus it was the merest religion came to Rabivania. Then the mages charged her damsels to scour the land far and wide until they had found a rabbit worthy of being crowned High King of Rabivania, a rabbit who could unify the kingdom and be the protector of the mother's faith. But the land was still wild and dangerous, and so the damsels needed protectors. Therefore, the mages called forward 13 rabbit warriors of the greatest virtue to confer upon them the accolade of knighthood. They swore to live according to the faith of the mother, protect the weak and defenseless, combat injustice, always speak the truth, and ever display bravery and honor. The mages dubbed these warriors the first knights of Rabivania with a slender sword and girt them with white belts. Then the damsels departed, accompanied by their knightly guardians, to seek the rabbit who would become the High King. At long last, the damsels found the rabbit Aiden, who had become called the Bear, as upon his shield and banner he bore a black bear upon a white shield. So yes, Aiden the Bear is a rabbit. The damsels brought him back to the bank of Kalinmir. There the mages crowned him High King of Rabivania. Aiden brought the rebellious rabbit lords to heel and restored order and sanity to the land. No rat, weasel, or raccoon could withstand a lance-wielding knight, fully armed in armor, astride a great war fox. Even the venomous snakes, savage boars, and other great beasts of the land were put to flight. In those days, Aiden ruled wisely and justly, the perfect example of a Mirite king. The religion of the mother flourished in Rabivania. But now the tales of Clovis are but myth. Aiden's kingship has faded into legend, and trouble brews in the land once again. The kingdom is fracturing. The rot of hubris, avarice, and dishonor has seeped into the most powerful warrens. Rabbit lords have taken to themselves monarchical titles, proclaiming themselves kings ruling from their own halls. The Magus of the Mist cannot be found, and in her absence, the Mirite matriarchs, safe within their palaces, are obsessed with sweeping away the last vestiges of the Clovician religions, witchcraft and druidism. But the religion of the witches can still be found on the fringes of Rabivanian society, and sometimes even practiced secretly in the halls of otherwise outwardly Mirite warrens. Moreover, the ancient order of the Druids cannot be easily brushed aside. Its members work among the populace, and because of their network across the kingdom, their order may know more of the secret happenings within Rabivania than any other. Meanwhile, outside of Rabivania's borders, a fearsome raccoon warlord, Ivar, is searching for a magical weapon of unsurpassed power, which would make him invincible, all while unifying the disparate barbarian raccoon tribes into a horde of such size that it could easily sweep aside the defenses of any of the Rabivanian lords. Rabivania must unify against the threat, but the throne of the High King at Cloven Call is empty. With the Magus of the Mist missing, the damsels cannot be tasked to search for a new High King. Instead, the nobles of the great warrens petition the matriarchs to establish a new precedent, to declare one of their number High King. It's not, but it is not for the good of the realm they do this. Each intends to ensure that it is a member of their own borough holds, who shall be chosen to satisfy their own thirst for power. Rabivania needs new heroes, those who will heed the call to adventure and balance the spirit of rock, root, and tree with the true meaning of the religion of the mother. They must unify the kingdom and not be afraid to do battle with brutal raccoon and wicked weasel. Remember our history, the spirit of Rabivania, Clovis, the mother, and all we are. Stay true, heed the call to arms, and remember, you must always be brave. And that's written by the anchorite of Willow Grove Locked. So that's a refresher on what this is. So, yes, I do too. And of course, I think that the current thought on the term or the word Vortigern is that it is a name and not a title. Like, what is but it is a really cool word. And so I adopted it here as if it were a title. Let's see. What Wikipedia is currently saying. Well, actually, there appears to be a lot more here than there used to be. Well, this says Vortigern was okay. So this says Vortigern was a 5th century warlord in Britain, known perhaps as the King of the Britons, or at least connotated as such in the writings of Bede and Gildas. His existence is contested, by scholars with information and about him and information about him is obscure. So yeah, because I think at one time people thought that Vortigern was a title, but I think the current thinking is that, okay, no, it's actually a guy's name. Yeah, this guy's name. But nonetheless, okay, that works for a fantasy, right? Or, something like, okay, well, hey, I really like that. And so I took the title Vortigern, or took Vortigern, made it a title. And then that's what the druid and the witches call the High King. So High King is the Mirite version. Vortigern is the more ancient version. May the lady clean my armor in the river so I may shine my brightest when my time comes. Oh, thank you, Robert. Yeah, I think so. BGD says, based on your lore, I think the damsels are the most challenging character class to give appropriate mechanical parity with the other class options. I completely agree. Hey, good morning, Nathaniel. Because they are the non-combatants. They're real iconic here, but they're non-combatants. So we wrote, I wrote that, and then I got some notes here on adapting 5e to this. And see, at one time we were also, this was back when we were really into Pathfinder 2nd edition as well. And I was coming through here and I was trying to, hey, let's do Pathfinder 2nd edition as well. That's actually kind of when this project ground to a halt. And then we went on to the relaunch of the Cultists, because, even though I said I'm not real thrilled with the 5e adaptation, but like I said, I'm not trying to provide the most, accurate adaptation of Rabivania's lore to, that I can. I'm just trying to provide an acceptable one given a given rule set. And I think I did that for 5e, something that was acceptable. The problem with Pathfinder 2e, and I was having this conversation with Wild Barley, a friend of mine, the other day, is that when I'm doing something like Pathfinder 2nd edition, the rules of it are set up so much to do Pathfinder, like play Pathfinder. What is Pathfinder? The specific high fantasy style game. This is very difficult to do something else with. I think this was an advantage. Like 5th edition, 3rd edition, and 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons seems to have gotten that close to right, especially 5th edition, because you see a lot of different adaptations for 5th edition. Two different things. 5th edition plays high fantasy, role playing like we know, but the rule system is flexible enough that can be adapted to other things relatively easily, even if imperfectly. You can do it, relatively well. We were talking, Wild Barley and I were talking about, well, with 3rd edition, you did do things like modern fantasy, and they did use it to build Star Wars. But I feel like they kind of broke the system down, went down to a more bedrock level and then built it out. So my point is, so when I sit down and I'm looking at Pathfinder 2nd edition, I was looking at something that was much more mathematically and mechanically tighter than 5th edition, and therefore directly engineered to do what it does. It was very difficult to go into Pathfinder 2nd edition and try to come up with something that made Rabivania, because you need to go down several different levels of game design. So I was not happy about that. I started kind of looking at EZD6, because I said when we went over that, I was like, hey, I could totally see playing that with my nephews. And speaking of which, we do have our first Dungeons and Dragons game in the middle of this month, so I've got to prepare for that. I was like, hey, I could totally see playing that game with my nephews. And, Rabivania is kind of designed for that too. So it just feels like there should be an EZD6 adaptation. But I just kind of barely got started with that, because all I really knew about the system was what we did is when we read through it here on the Morning Grind. Yeah, it could be both. It can be both. So in Rabivania, it's the title. It's like suzerain in my world, title and name of the firstborn of the vice regent. Yeah, BGD says, it gets extremely hard when writing fantasy, either fiction for RPGs, to avoid sayings and technical terms that are actually etymologically grounded in real-world Earth history. Yeah, and some of those things bother me a lot more than others. Well, like this is done deliberately. Like, okay, I like that word, so let's import it. Because there's only so much of that you can I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible to avoid. But some of the things that people that are like cliches or something, or sayings that end up in fantasy, or even just anachronistic historical accounts, bother me more than others. So anyway, so I'm not going to go through all that. That was the preface. It's kind of a reminder of what this was. But then we did, the player characters. We built this off of, who was this that was talking about? Maybe that was Wolfgang, who was like, what is it that a world book needs to have? It needs to have, what are the characters, what's the magic, and what's the geography to play in? I think that was something, and we basically built that off. So we said, yeah, this is just a short primer. So this is just everybody's playing a rabbit. But then I did have a section for gear down here. And I tried to, when we were talking about like 5th edition, like go through here and strip out anything that like this is the age of mail. So like we don't have plate armor and stuff like that. So I did go through and strip out anything that was not appropriate to the setting. Same with weapons and armor and things like that. Gave information about a little bit of behind the lore information on like the High King and the nobility and the different titles that are in Rabivania. And then also did the gazetteer with a few different places to adventure: Beaconsdale, Callanmere, Camerland Tor, Cloven Call, Elmhearth, the Old Forest. That could be expanded greatly, but like I said, this is intended to just be kind of a sample of the world. Hey, Mike, good morning. Good morning, Tomocrat. Good morning. Great to see you. And then also did a brief bestiary that even if you're not playing other types of creatures, here are some stats for the foxes, the mice, the raccoons, a rat, snake, squirrel, the weasel, and gave a little bit of information on them. And, that was intended to be, I don't know, a short little tight package on what this is. So most importantly, as far as stats go, that gets updated here we got 4 different types of characters: the knight, the druid, the witch, and the damsel. I mean, can there be more? Yeah, there could be more, and I would expect that would expand in some kind of longer book. But okay, the knight, the druid, the witch, and the damsel are all kind of iconic in Rabivania, so they need stats for however you're going to be playing them. If you're separating the species from the character class, then okay, do we need to talk about what it means to be a knight here? So I thought this was. I know I still need to make another pass or two of edit over this. But okay, if there's species information, that needs to be changed. Some of the gear, some of this like medium armor stuff, that is specifically a 5e game mechanic that's in there. So some of the gear might, need to be changed around, and weapons. Information about the nobility and all of that just stays. But then for like the different bestiaries, like, okay, how do we do a mice? Here is like mouse peasant field worker in 5th edition terms. And I've got there is one order of mouse knights. So I gave an example of a mouse knight NPC. If you needed. So like those would need to be changed. So that's kind of stats that need to be updated. So, right here, BGD says, I think the key to designing and quickly assembling your system conversion guides is taking each rule set and accurately identifying exactly what the structure is for that game's class template. Taking each rule set and accurately identifying exactly what the structure is. Yeah. Yeah, I see. Yeah. Looking at the other rule set and saying, okay, what do you actually have to have in order to make some kind of character like that. So I would like to, it'd be nice, I think, like I said, you can do this. If you're doing print on demand, why not have a 5e? Now, I don't know what's up with Dungeons and Dragons. I haven't, cared. And I would really hate to have to go by, but whatever, like is 5.5 or whatever they're calling it, the new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, different enough that you need a different world primer. I mean, a lot of people are from the getting your world out there kind of perspective. It makes sense to have the conversions for the most popular systems. So I mean, maybe somebody out there is like, hey, yeah, for 5.5 or whatever they call it, here's, I know that well, and here's what we need to do in order to adjust it. I don't know. Let's see. BGD says it would certainly be interesting to imagine having mice, rats, weasels, or snakes as NPCs, but I think all your PCs should be rabbits. It is Rabivania after all. Yeah, it is Rabivania, yes. And and that does make it easy. Like in OSE, it's like, okay, just assume human, or make mouse its own character class or something like that. But like the mice and the rabbits are aligned or allied. The mice work the rabbits' fields, and there is one order of knights, mice knights that serve in Rabivania. The king of the high king knighted some mice for their performance in battle, and they've been carrying on their knightly tradition. And they do hang out at Elmhearth, the main area, which is what the Goodnight Sword is set at. Goodnight Sword is set in Elmhearth. So there are mice. Like there's a mouse that pops up, a mouse squire in there. So rats, the rats are the bad guys. The weasels are the bad guys. Squirrels, they hang out in the trees above Rabivania. Who is this game for? That's a great question. That's a great question. Because so this one right here, so like if I'm doing like D6 or something, I would want this to be able to be something that I'd be able to play with the nephews and other children. There is a problem that I have that, like, when I was sending around material that I had written for Rabivania, I do have different stories that are geared for different age groups. So at this timeline, I'm thinking it is probably for younger people. This part of this timeline of the world. I wrote the story of Clovis, and I got a lot of feedback on it, and I'm going to rewrite it before it goes out. The story of Clovis is a much more adult story, because I've got like the action figures back here, and these action figures go in with this timeline, go with this particular timeline. So this timeline needs to be thought about with more children in mind. If I go back to Clovis, like some people were like, okay, this is violent, of course. The story of Clovis is rather violent when he's fighting Enorta. And this doesn't, some people were like, this doesn't sound like it's written for children. Well, maybe it's not, so that one might be a more adult kind of story. Something like Goodnight Sword is obviously for very young children, and that ties into this timeline. That's set in this timeline. I've got the document about how, a document that teaches you about arms and armor, which is also for a very young kind of audience. So Rabivania does have, for different stories, has a different kind of age target. Well, we're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do with that, because also so much of Rabivania is about Stray says, I want to be a squire. Growing up, there's the element of the story about growing up. So a lot of the stories do, I want to focus on like squires, right? How they're trying to grow up and become a knight. Nathaniel says, understanding adventure day mechanic allowances when there will help balancing them as well for development. Understanding adventure day mechanic allowances when there will help balancing them as well for development purposes. Oh, Stray gifted a membership. Thank you very much, Stray. Let's see who got that. Student was gifted a membership by Stray. I have not seen Student. Titterpig says, Roll for Combat was talking about how a lot of people at WotC actually do call it 5.5e internally, much to the frustration of marketing in certain parties who insist it's still 5e. Oh, hey, Doc. Yeah, and so I'd rather, because everything is so slow on my side, I realize it. I'd rather have, like, write the world books and then let, the world primers, and then let somebody who actually knows those systems well, if it's one that I don't, hey, because it's, it's not that much. Overall, It's not an 8,000 or an 80,000 word document with like a Forgotten Realms kind of thing with all the stats in and stuff like that. For something short like this, there isn't that much. So I don't know. I've intentionally as much of 5e I've looked at has to do with that DMG we're talking about. BGD says, I like that based on the tone of Heath's writing, which is downright gritty in places, that Rabivania takes itself seriously. I think that helps make the system a game for everyone, even certain kids. It does, yeah, it's, and like I said, that's part of 2025 too, is I'm just going to lean into it. I tend to be violent and gritty and whatever, and that's what I like. So that's just what I'm going to do. So I'm just bringing, especially in 2025, whatever I am, I'm bringing that. But I would expect that if it's depicted visually, because it does take itself seriously. Rabivania is not a joke, but I expect that, especially if you were depicting it on a show or on screen, which I do want to be able to do, there will be humor in it, but that humor probably comes or is intended to come visually, because the part of the humor would be, okay, you've got these small rabbits, and I would want to be sure that on screen or in a book, an illustration, it does convey the fact that, okay, these guys are small, like walking by dandelions or whatever else. Sometimes their castle is covered up with leaves, that you got to, or, if somebody, I had a scene where somebody brings somebody an apple, and they're holding the apple, and I was like, well, wait a minute. An apple, if you're a rabbit, an apple is kind of a large thing. So then the scene doesn't get rewritten. It still plays out very seriously, except for if you're thinking about it, this guy is bringing the apple to his love. Here, have this apple, except for if you're a rabbit and you're depicting that scene visually, they're taking themselves very seriously. But he's like, here you go, have this apple. And it's like, as big as their heads that they're trying to, pass on. How do you have your rabbit or larger? How do you can't like, okay, I'm going to take this apple to this girl I like. Okay, well, it's not like you and I carrying around an apple. I mean, you really got to haul this apple around. So the comedy would come from, or humor would come, I think, from visual representations. So anyway, so that's was what this is. So I was most generally happy with this is what I was able to come up with for the night, and I forget where we came up with all of this, but like a night 5e class. Fighting style was a first level thing, mounted combat, expert jouster, mounted defense, great weapon fighting. I mean, a lot of this was pulled, from other things, and the things that don't fit taken out, and remixed different class elements. Second wind, that's a fighter kind of thing, so that makes sense that second wind comes in here. Great blow on second level, channeling powerful melee attacks, unyielding resolve at third. Receive advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Like if you were expanding these character classes, then I think Bard or Troubadour definitely has to go in. And then probably a non-knight fighter. Some type of sergeant / sergeant, or, yeoman, bowman, because there are other warriors that are not knights, because there's also bound up in social class and things like that. So, those are two things that could be added later. Unyielding resolve. And I think we only went up to 5th level too here. That was a thing. Since this was just a world primer, that, okay, we don't have to do all 20 levels. So I think we were just like, okay, let's go up to 5th level. But okay, so it seems pretty easy. Where are my books over here? Use the physical rules tome for OSE. This is play. Oh, advanced fantasy. Okay, right here. BG says, I would like to see Rabivania's version of a skill monkey class, like a rogue or a highwayman. Yeah, there should probably be that too. Now, of course, the highway, like the weasels, you're talking about, like, if you're talking about, like, NPCs, like, I think that's how I actually built out the weasels for like an NPC. I think you were supposed to encounter like the weasels. Yeah, weasel cutthroat. So, like, actual highwaymen, okay, that's the weasels out there. But yeah, I think there should also be like the rabbit rogue. Yeah. In fact, yeah, there's a character like that in one of the stories that I was working with. I was working with Cameron for a while on a script, but it never worked. It never worked. Stray says, right, I'm all hooked on Heath's writing, and this LOL, it's so well done and nibbles at something I thought I got too old for. Like, I have a lot of fun thinking about it. Well, thank you. So yeah, that was it. When people were talking about writing the Clovis, like what's the version of the Clovis story? Like Cameron says, this sounds like it's written for you. I was like, well, it kind of is. It is. So that's a more adult kind of story, but also from the for the ones that are more child focused. I want people to know that okay, you can give somebody Rabivania and it will and they will be in good hands. But on the other hand, like when we're talking about talking about being gritty and violent, He-Man is an inspiration here. But as James Bacon and I were talking about when we were discussing He-Man and also Retro Nerd Girl, that like He-Man not being allowed to hit things with his sword. Like I wanted He-Man to actually be able to fight as a kid. So even the stuff that is more child focused, I do take seriously because I think children can handle that. Okay, the Rabbit Knights are not going to be like I talked to Lou about that. How do you handle something like a knight in a children's story that's like intended for like middle school or younger, and that these knights are killers? That's what they are. They're intended to be warriors, and we're not going to shy away from that. It's not going to be, hey, look, the knights all do like judo throws or something like that when they because I think that younger audiences can handle fighting and violence and even death. Some can, in a story. Okay, so I think one of the reasons that I like the OSE stuff is because, like I was talking about with Pathfinder, I feel like when I was trying to convert Pathfinder, it didn't work because by the time you're at Pathfinder Second Edition, man, you're already so high or so deep, depending on what metaphor you want to use, in the levels of game design that are already making that. Trying to build something else from it is very difficult. Where it's been much easier with OSE because you're really looking at the bones of the game. So, okay, so OSE does have a knight, which seems to be something we should definitely base this off of. So here's what the knight is. The 13 virtuous rabbits, resplendent in their gleaming armor, knelt on the bank of Callan-Mere. The damsels girt them with white belts. The mages of the mist dubbed them knights. From the tale of Aidan the Bear, as written by the anchorite of Willow Grove Locked. Oh, a lot of people have something to say. So Stitterpig says, like C.S. Lewis famously said, we don't tell fairy tales to children to let them know dragons exist. Children know dragons exist. We tell them fairy tales to let them know dragons can be slain. Don't sanitize the stories you tell kids. And another, like on that point, and I've told this story before when we were talking about Rabivania, but a major inspiration here of what I don't want to do is one of my favorite books, which I need to get a copy of this book. I gave it to my nephews. I think also my cousins when they were, I've got cousins that are like Megan is much younger than that, like Megan and Kenna, who did the Cultist with me. I gave it to them. I gave it to the other nephews. That's called The Knight and the Dragon. And this is an early children's book. Like I had it, I think we checked it out from the library actually, early on. The Knight and the Dragon. And it's almost a picture book. The Knight and the Dragon picture book. It's got some words in it, but it's, yep, right here. Does anybody know this one? I'll pull it up just so you can see. I loved this book as a young kid, The Knight and the Dragon? Because it starts off by saying once upon a time in a castle there lived a knight who had never fought a dragon, and then the next page is, and in a cave not too far away, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but something like this. In a cave not too far away, there lived a dragon who had never fought a knight. And so they decide that they're going to fight each other. Like they send letters back and forth, like, okay, it's time for the fight. And then the book is about their preparation for the fight. And the knight is forging all of his armor, mostly as pictures, but I love that kind of thing. The knight's forging his armor, he's painting his shield, he's sharpening his swords, he's painting his lances and things like that, getting everything ready to go. And he's out in the practice yard practicing his jousting. And the dragon's doing the same thing in his cave, like making his eyes turn red. And he's like setting up wicker knights and then practicing lighting them on fire with his breath and doing things like that. They're all preparing. And then the day for the battle comes, and they start to fight their battle. But then the princess comes by and admonishes them for fighting, and actually makes the knight and the dragon be friends, and they start a hot dog stand together. And like the knight has all these like hot dogs on his lances, and the or a barbecue stand, I guess it was, or whatever. And the dragon is using his flames to barbecue. And I loved everything about that book up until the very end. Like they were supposed to fight. I wanted to see a fight between the dragon, and it ended up with, okay, no, actually, we can't have them fight. The princess tells them to be friends, and so they start a barbecue stand. I thought it was completely reversed everything that had come before in this story. So, like when I've got Clovis fighting a Norda, I was very much thinking about this. That like in a certain type of, this is the children's thing about a rabbit, or this guy who's going to fight this monster. Oh, now really, should we be fighting? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe at the end they should just become friends. Nope, they have a fight. They decide to fight each other. And it isn't pretty, right? It's gritty, right? I think what you can do is write with the children or young adults in mind, and then let your parents decide. Right, that's all you can do. I agree. Let's see. Let me go down. You can't give her that. Is not say right. Right. The Doc Flamingo says, read the original Grimm's fairy tales. They're full on psycho. The point of the children's story is to prepare them for the fact that life is brutal and unfair in a controlled way. Yeah, and actually, one of our favorite ones was, I think it was the Snow White. We had the Snow White Grimm's fairy tale as a kid, and they make the wicked stepmother dance until she drops dead in like red hot shoes from the fire as the wedding entertainment. So BGD says, from the RPG player's perspective, in summation, what would you envision are the damsel's key narrative action features? A knight fights, a druid drews. So what do you do when you're playing the damsel? So what did I say in here? Let's see let's go down to the damsel. Okay, so we can work on the damsel. So here's the little write-up for what the damsel is. I know you've seen this, BGD, but it says, beside the magus walking in the mist were 9 beautiful damsels, the embodiment of virtue, clad in raiment of white and gold. From the tale of Aidan the Bear, is written by the anchorite of Willow Grove Locked. Damsel of the Blood Royal. The Damsels of the Blood Royal are a quasi-religious order whose members travel Rabivania, promoting knightly virtue and Mirism, the faith of the mother. They frequently appear at tournaments to inspire chivalry of the knights and give their favors. The damsels are not ordained members of the Locked, and therefore do not perform ceremonies or rites as the clerics do. However, they are exceedingly popular among the commoners and nobles alike, and can expect hospitality wherever they go. As the most trusted paw maidens of the Magus of the Mist, they must sometimes travel dangerous roads on her errands, but there is no shortage of gallant knights who are more than willing to ride in escort of a damsel wherever she must go, and perhaps win her favor on the journey. The Magus of the Mist personally inducts virtuous young maidens who are strong of heart and devout of faith in the mother, into the damsels. Upon being taken as a damsel, the maiden sets aside her given name and adopts the name of a virtue the magus has noted the inductee is especially capable of demonstrating. By tradition, the damsels are 9 in number, but in practice their number is varied from time to time based on the needs of the magus. The virtues from which the damsels take their names are not set, but the following names see common use: prudence, charity, chastity, love, joy, faith, temperance, patience, and humility. So what did we say for 5th edition here? We said, because they are kind of a non-combat, this is one of those things where, okay, they're kind of non-combat, but in the context of a RPG, especially 5th edition, what should they be doing? Yeah. So I gave them dagger, dart, quarterstaff, sling. Their skill proficiencies, choose 2 from deception, history, insight, medicine, persuasion, religion, or performance. Equipment, they get a simple weapon, set of fine clothes, white dress with golden plaque belt, set of traveling clothes, a healer's kit, riding fox with tack and riding gear, traveler's pack, and diplomat pack. So at level 1, they got inspiring presence. At first level, your presence and demeanor inspires your allies. As an action, you can choose a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, minimum 1, within 30 feet of you. These creatures temporarily gain hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier. Once you use this feature, you must complete a long rest or short rest before you can use it again. I think I was thinking in terms of, okay, let me go and look at some of the bard's buff abilities and put them here into the damsel. So the damsel is the the person who does the buffs. Let's see. Damsels could do something like support characters that motivates others. Their actions basically grant additional actions to their allies. Right. Yes. Something like that. So on level 2, virtuous teachings. At 2nd level, your knowledge of chivalry and virtue allows you to guide others on their personal growth. During a long rest, you can choose 1 creature to teach. That creature gains one of the following benefits, which lasts until the next long rest: advantage on saving throws against being frightened, advantage on charisma persuasion checks, or advantage on wisdom insight checks. Level 3, inspiring speech. As an action, you can deliver an inspiring speech that bolsters your allies. As a creature of your choice, all creatures of your choice within 30 feet of you gain advantage on their next ability check, attack roll, or saving throw made within the next minute. Once you use this feature, you must complete a short rest before you can use it again. 4th level is ability score improvement. That's standard for 5th. Level 5 was Damsel's Aura. At 5th level, you can use your action to emit a calming aura that helps your allies recover their wounds. All creatures of your choice within 30 feet of you regain hit points equal to your charisma modifier, plus your damsel's level. Once you use this feature, you must complete a long rest before you use it again. See, do you get both of these? I don't remember if you're supposed to choose one or not. I have to check that. Heroic Inspiration. When an ally within 30 feet of you makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can use your reaction to grant that ally a bonus equal to your charisma modifier on that roll. Once you use this feature, you must complete a short or long rest before you can use it again. And then also, like, the social situations. So if you're building the 3 different situations that, like, so I was giving her all the buffs of the bard, but then also, because she's so beloved, I would think that we also want her to have all of the social cachet when you're visiting places or going places. You're going to get a lot of difference from the population. BGD says, maybe the damsels are the skill monkeys, coupled with support features like you might see in a bear. I want to test the edge case of a party of all damsels dropped into an ambush combat encounter. Yeah, so I think you're completely right that that's the most difficult one. And of course, you've got like hit points and things like that in 5th edition. Bard. Oh, yeah, you might see, coupled with the support features that you might see in a bard. Yes. I was hesitant to give her a lot of healing stuff. Now, you do have this aura here, and of course, you get into what do hit points represent. And again, like I said, this is the 5th edition interpretation, because they got to be able to do something. I mean, you run into this problem as well, like when we were doing Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. If you're doing when you're doing kind of low magic worlds, whatever she's doing here is interpreted within 5th edition as increasing hit points. But I think I had the witch I see. I went through and I tried to. I was like, okay, what of these different spells? I have a brief witch spell list. Happened to be like the most Rabivania of spells. Like if you're going to have Vancian spell casting like 5th edition in the world, which it probably does not have, or it actually does not have. But if you were trying to interpret this according to 5th edition, what kinds of things would they have? The witch has things like friends, minor illusion, prestidigitation, true strike, charm person, comprehend languages, hex, illusory script, crown of madness, enthralled, hold person, suggestion, counterspell, dispel magic, magic circle. Those things seemed to be the most witch-like. I thought, yeah, does herbalism at 5th level. She's got something about herbalism here. Here. At 1st level, you gain proficiency with the herbalism kit. You can use your knowledge of plants and their properties to create poultices, brew potions, and concoct remedies, which heal 1d4 hit points. Witches have a limited number of spells they may cast like a 5e warlock. So the spell list for witches has been revised from the 5e warlock spell list to try to preserve the feel of the more historically grounded Rabivania while still allowing witches to cast spells in the way that 5e players expect. That's the compromise right there. And then she does increase. I think the druid also can make some minor yeah, it has herbalism experience too. Nathaniel says, if they were trusted with budgeting or collecting on a knight's quests, maybe they could have more justification for self-defense. Self-defense features. Yeah. I see it as a speak to me kind of healing at the end of the battle. They could. What kind of familiar? I don't think I'd thought about that, but they certainly could. What type of familiar would a rabbit have? If you're a rabbit witch, I don't think anything that I've written the rabbit has had a witch has had a familiar yet. But what type of animal would be a good familiar for a rabbit? That's why the rabbit knights ride foxes. Because okay, they got to ride something. So the fox is like a great animal. It's about that right size. So the rabbit knights ride foxes. So so if you do have a familiar, a stoat, Better with Bacon says a stoat familiar, that could work. You need probably someplace there needs to be like a list of I looked up stout. Yeah. Well, no, I mean a mouse, but a mouse. It can't be a mouse because it's a mouse is another one of the anthropomorphized animals. It needs to be one that's not anthropomorphized. The foxes are not. The foxes don't speak. Although, also in the visuals of that, I want to be clear that the foxes do understand what's going on. They just don't speak. So we would need the stoat's the smallest of the weasels. Yeah, so something like that, because I don't think that the stoats are not a cricket. Like a cricket. Yeah, something like that. Now that I like a cricket because they can move. That would be that. I like the rabbit with a cricket familiar because then you could have the cricket up on their shoulder and things like that. Oh, we got to make note of that. Somebody's got to have a cricket familiar. I like. I got a place for just some notes up here. I'll put this up here with witches and familiars. Cricket. BG says, damsel's major focus on social skills, negotiation, and buff inspiration, along with minor abilities encompassing healing and a dash of knowledge areas and ability to avoid melee might be good. I think that's exactly how you go. And I think you leave the major, leave the witch as kind of the major healing person, or I think, or are, because it would be easy to give the healing to the damsel, the witch, and the druid. But then, I mean, that's a lot of healing. So you break these things out, I think. We're going to keep going here. I got other things to do today, but we're just getting started here. We got lots of people here. So I'm going to continue this conversation for a little while. Because this is a good one. So yeah, that's what I think. The witch has got, like, according to the 5e interpretation, you know, she can actually do things to people with, you know, like charm person and hex. I forget exactly, but so she's a little bit more offensive, whereas the druid, is our wizard. The druid is our wizard. And I really liked the. I just rolled up that picture for the thumbnail today. I'll put it up here. Because the druids in Rabivania are inspired by Merlin and Gandalf. Like the Grand Druid of Rabivania is like Merlin. But so I really like this like little roll up of what a Rabivania druid would be. So it's not a very 5th edition kind of druid. You know, what you think about with the druid in 5th edition is not what I'm going for here. So like this guy, he looks very much like a Gandalf or like a Radagast type. He's kind of wearing the colors that I kind of think of as Radagast. But like that's what so if you're trying to play that kind of character, you know, Gandalf or wizard or Merlin kind of character in Rabivania, you pick druid. You pick druid. Let's see. What happened to my... Here we go. So Knight isn't that difficult. So if we do 5e Knight. Okay, so I think I started with this. So the Knights are the well-armed and armored heavy cavalry of Rabivania. They wield sword, axe, and flail. Their armor of iron mail can turn even the sharpest claws of the forest beasts. The Knights form the core of the Rabivanian military, riding into battle astride great war foxes that provide them speed and maneuverability. Knights are renowned for their love of battle. But when there are no wars to be fought, knights ride across Rabivania looking for adventure and glory, practicing on the training field, or fighting in tournaments for their own honor, and that of their lady does whose favor they bear. Rabbits are not... one of the great things is that, you know, rabbits have bucks and does. Instead of men and women, they have bucks and does. So the women are does, the men are bucks, and that does actually mean that people can say "buck up" when talking to a rabbit. So rabbits are not naturally brave, and the world is a dangerous place. That's why those rabbits who dedicate themselves to the path of knighthood and receive its accolade are well respected. The Knights of Rabivania are expected to put themselves in harm's way wherever others are threatened, whether by snake, wolf, coyote, or raccoon marauders. Although the vast majority of Rabivanian knights are bucks, there are a few does who have received the accolade. Buck knights precede their name with sir to indicate their station. Does who have been dubbed knight precede their name with either dame or sir according to their preference. So that's the little write-up I gave about knights here. Let's see. Let's go under here and say that this is going to be the OSE knight. Now, one question, OSE Knight class. Does being a rabbit get you anything in OSE? And this doesn't have to be the full thing either. This is just the primer. Does being a rabbit get you anything in OSE? It's the default. Hey, Michael. Well, I know I did. It sounds like, I mean, because that's what people do because that's what people are expecting in 5e, right? It sounds like in your 5e proposed character class definitions, you definitely crossed the line outside the boundary of what might be considered low fantasy to give certain classes real spell casting. I did because that's what people are expecting with 5th edition. And so I tried, like I said, I wasn't trying to completely rebuild everything with this world primer. I was trying to give people what they were expecting out of that particular rule system in something that gets across the general flavor. Because like with the witch, okay, we're bouncing around, but that's no problem. In some of the stories, they will do things like the witches in the stories will predict the future, but are they really able to predict the future? Are they really, so that we have got something like like augury? Was that here? Or maybe it's not here. Maybe augury isn't over here. But or in a Arthurian kind of legend where you're encountering something and you've got enthrall. Okay, well, what's the best? Something like that happens. What's the easiest way to interpret that in a 5e setting with doing the least amount of damage to the system and trying to completely rebuild it? I prefer the traditional Gaelic style Druid Wiseman to the modern D&D shape shifting. Yeah, the shape shifting is a problem. Like I was trying to make sure that got rid of. That was a problem in Journey of Tree of Sorrows as well. It's like the shape shifting just doesn't work. I mean, that's a very specific kind of druid that just doesn't work in a lot of things. Jumping is always something that you think, okay, but also the ability to go to all levels. That's a big thing in OSE, and I can see that being something that is part of being a rabbit. Maybe the mice can't do that. But okay, so we do have the knight. What I was thinking, so we have a knight class in the advanced. We looked at this. Okay. Which I think for the most part works pretty well for a Rabivanian knight. Knight class. Okay, so base on knight class from the advanced book. Okay, like what kinds of things does the knight get? Okay, now it does say, see, this starts off by saying here that knights of first and second level are known as squires and are not yet regarded as true knights. If I were doing a full book for all of this, I would and it was going to be class based. Let's say both of those. If we're doing a full book on this and it was going to be class based, I think I would also make it clear that basically for all of our classes, the first two or three levels, whatever it is, you are still in training. That you're not yes, that's what Stray was talking about, wanting to be a squire. So according to OSE, okay, squires are first and second level. But I would also want to carry that over to something like the the witches. Okay, so if you're an early level witch, okay, you're still learning, you're still in training, you're still an apprentice to somebody else. Likewise with the druids, if you're an early level druid, you are still learning and you don't actually become a full druid until you hit some other level. And that way you can start your adventure as squires, and everybody else around them are, also learning how to be whatever it is that they're learning how to be, and you can start the adventure. So, I think that is, we do have the note. First and second level knights are actually squires. Works well. Let's make that. It works well for wanting to tell stories. Tell coming of age stories. And in an expanded work would need to be expanded to the other classes as well. Because then actually being knighted should be a big deal in your character's journey if you are starting off as a squire. Okay, I'm actually finally done what I need to be able to actually earn knighthood. Joel says, Druids left no written accounts. While they are reported to have been literate, they are believed to have been they have been prevented by doctrine from recording their knowledge in written form. I think that should be part of the Druids here too, that they are literate there, but that they prize memorization quite a bit. BGD says, I think it's still a valid choice to stay low fantasy and true to your core lore axis across all rules, as long as your individual conversions are internally valid and maintain reasonable class choices. Let me read that again. I think it's still a valid choice to stay low fantasy and true to your core lore across all rules, as long as your individual conversions are internally valid and maintain reasonable class choices. I mean, I agree. I mean, if that can be done, that's best. I agree. Yeah, that's what Druids are here in Rabivania as well. They're the animistic religious leaders, but they also they're the legal authorities for the particular branch of Clovician law, lore keepers, medical professionals, political advisors. Yeah, that's exactly what the Druids are in Rabivania. You can certainly have a low fantasy 5e Rabivania conversion, just not one that will ever cross over easily with the character generator presented in the 5th edition Player's Handbook. Oh, right. Yeah. I don't think you necessarily have to play nice with that. This is something else that because I mean, like I said, one of the goals here is to make this something that you could pick up. And if you know 5th edition, oh, okay, well then here is this interpretation. So knight alignment as their liege. Okay, knights are bound by a strict code of honor. I think all of that worked well. That seems very Rabivania knightly. The dishonor thing, I'm still in the advanced fantasy book. That works good. Knights can use all melee weapons, but cannot use missile weapons. That works. They can wear any metal armor, but scorn non-metal armor is only suitable for peasants and villains. Yeah, so an important part. Well, okay, so with the idea with your leveling up, that like having knightly equipment. Okay, so this is an equipment note here. Having a knightly kit is an essential part of being knighted, or is necessary to be knighted. You know, because a knight is expected to have the equipment that allows him to serve as heavy cavalry in the army. So, you know, whether you're gifted that or whatever, but the note here would be, but if you are starting a game where you are a squire, you know, 1st and 2nd level, then these requirements wouldn't be on you. Your character wouldn't have those requirements because you haven't, you know, but by the time, if you're going to get knighted by 3rd level, you need to have saved enough money to be able to get your war horse, your war fox in this situation, your armor and everything like that. So in that case, well, you're not yet a knight. So that would need to have some kind of adjustment right here. I find Druid has taken on a new age definition because modern D&D and the original role was lost. Yeah, the Druids are, yes, there is like a new age element in a lot of interpretations of Druid, which I didn't, which is not here. And then we do have a problem here with flying mounts. Remove flying mounts. Got to think of something else. Because that's not going to work in Rabivania. Because here it says a knight of 5th level or higher can train fantastic flying monsters as mounts. This takes 1 month. In general, a knight may train flying monsters of hit die equal to the knight's level, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this remove flying mounts and replace with a new ability. Maybe that is a good place to put something that's kind of more inspired by, well, even there's like in the carcass crawler, there were different types of combat specialties they using for fighters, but I think that would be a good thing to potentially replace here. Potentially replace with fighter techniques. I forget exactly what it was called from the carcass crawler. That would probably be a good idea. Horsemanship. Yeah, they can assess foxes. That makes sense. Urging to great speed. That also, okay, that makes sense. Hospitality. A knight of 3rd level or higher can expect hospitality and aid from nobles and other knights of the same alignment. That makes sense. Mounted combat. Knights gain +1 bonus to attack rolls when mounted. That makes sense. Strength of will. Knights are immune to all supernatural fear effects from 3rd level. Companions within 10 feet of the knight gain +2 bonus on saving throws. So that is something that kind of, well, I don't know how we're interpreting the damsel in OSE, but knights are immune to, but they have the immunity to fear, and then are able to inspire allies for that. Knights gain a +4 bonus to saving throws against hold spells, charms, mind control, hypnotism, suggestion, etc. That works. Stronghold, that works. Creating a stronghold after 9th level. So I think that the knight, an OS, that's probably one of the most direct conversions to be able to put the knight into Rabivania. I think that actually works pretty well. Stray says maybe if you follow a house, they might give you the mount, or you can win one in a tournament. Right? Yeah, sure. And being, yeah, I don't think it's even a problem to be gifted some of the equipment. Yeah, at all. Yeah. And then in return, you would need to do that for others, as you're coming up. That, okay, in order to be a knight, you've got to have certain equipment. And it's time for you to be knighted. So if you decide it's time for this person to be knighted, well, that person might get some gifts. And in exchange, you might have to do the same thing for the next person. So that one's a very direct. I like that. I like that a lot. You want to look at Druid? Let's look at Druid. The Titterpig Rancher says, I'd say to be careful not to fall into the 5e trap, then give classes so many abilities that they feel like they're driving a mech, as Dave Thaumavar calls it, especially at higher levels. Yeah. Well, and I don't think that OSE does that. I mean, like I said, that's if you're doing a 5e adaptation, that's what players expect. But that's another reason, actually, why I only went to 5th level, because the designing anything for 5e, I hated the most when you are working on 18th level characters and whatever else, for that very reason. And also why I don't think that it is overall appropriate for a lot of the worlds that I do. But like I said, from the getting it out there perspective, a lot of people know that rule set. So, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to connect people to Rabivania. So, Druid. Okay, so here's what I said about Druids. For many days, Clovis and the rabbit stayed at Camerland Tor, eating mushrooms and berries and learning the secrets of the stars and of the worlds beyond, and erecting standing stones upon the hill. There upon the hill was established the first circle of Druids, from the Tale of Krieg and the Caproctony, as written by the anchorite of Willow Grove Locht. Druid. Druids have traditionally filled many roles in Rabivanian society. Druids are not only the animistic priests and priestesses of Rabivania's most ancient religion, but the storytellers who preserve Rabivania's history, experts in the ancient Clovician legal traditions, scholars, counselors, and through their connection with the spirits present in rock, root, and tree, practitioners of magic. And of course, they don't really distinguish between religion and magic. I mean, this is like taking, to Merlin. If Merlin is a druid in the traditional sense, as Arthur's counselor by the throne, King Arthur, I mean, Merlin in that kind of setting doesn't really distinguish between magic and religion. You know, it's not science to him. It's all just religion, the way things work. According to myth, the great rabbit Clovis founded the first druidic circle on the sacred hill of Camerland Tor after his battle with Anorda. Thereafter, the druids became responsible for managing the relationship between rabbits and the spirits of the wild. Ever since, rabbits who are particularly attuned to the spirits have dedicated their lives to a deep communion with them and have served as guides to others who want to deepen their spiritual connections. Today, though the religion of the mother has displaced druidism as the primary religion in Rabivania, the druids are still very present in rabbit life. Many shires and villages have their own local druid who they will seek out for their wisdom, a protective charm, or an herbal remedy. Further, although the druid social structure is loosely knit, it is an orderly and hierarchical structure under the leadership of the Grand Druid, who is still an important figure in the kingdom. While the druids are not militarily powerful, their network crisscrosses the land and little escapes their attention. Druids are not frontline combatants, but they are frequent travelers. Druids often need to consult with other druids, attend to moots, or examine stones or trees in faraway lands. They also can be found as advisors to the courts of Rabivanian nobles, where they provide counsel and interpret signs of nature. So, what do we have here in OSE that would be most like that, and what Joel is talking about here? So we do have Druid. Okay, so we do have Druid 40, but actually I feel like, and of course this is actually something that I've thought about. This is again in the idea that Heath does everything wrong and in the wrong order. There could actually be another Rabivania world primer that has to do with Clovis, because that's the story that I was working with, well, a number of people on. I did talk to Cameron about that, but that one is not high medieval. That is like they're inspired by Anglo-Saxon Celtic warriors. So that's much more I guess we'll say dark age kind of fantasy, rather than, of course, this is 12th century, so you know, but it's much more like warriors of the 300s, 400s, 500s, and something like that. So actually, I'm afraid that so you could completely redo this or do another one of these that's more like rabbits as Celtic warriors, which would be cool because then it would go with the Clovis story. And if I did that, then I think that the 40 is the druid that we really liked in advanced fantasy. The druid had, okay, charm, immunity, okay. They may not use metal armor or shields. Wooden shields may be purchased at the normal price. Their choice of weapons is limited to clubs, daggers, sling spells, and staves. They must carry a holy symbol. Deity's favor, magical research, spell casting, use magical items. They can gain +2 bonus against electricity, lightning, and fire. Okay. Druids can identify all plants and animals and can discern pure water. Druids could speak a secret language only known to their sect. Okay, I mean, that works. Pass without trace, I'm fine with that. Path finding. Shape change does not work. Shape change is in here. So let's see. Okay, so this is, so what I think actually, OSE Druid. This is fun. What kind of notes? How do we do an OSE Druid that's Rabivania appropriate? Okay, this would be notes on the advanced OSE Druid. Like what would need to be done to this person. So it says druids of a 7th level or above are immune to charms. Okay, we're only going to 5th level anyway. I don't know. But okay, if the witches can charm you, then okay, yeah, if you're using that type of mechanic, then okay, druids being immune to charm, that's fine. I don't see them as combatants like the combat, the art choice of stuff allows. Their choice of weapons is limited to clubs, daggers, slings, spears, and staves. I mean, that's okay, but then I guess they're not really going to be fighting that much. They got to carry a holy symbol. Hey, let's take a look at what druid spells are here. What kinds of things can druids do as spells? Are they anything Rabivania like? Druid spell list: animal friendship, detect danger, entangle, fairy fire, invisibility to animals, locate plant or animal, predict weather, speak with animals. BG, sometimes our interpretation could be something like, the MERP gives a lot of people spells, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like the Rangers have spells and so forth. But really, it's the spells are trying to replicate some type of special ability. Like the Ranger spell list in MERP. It's really how those characters are able to execute some kind of special abilities. So something like predict weather is here, or locate plant or animal. So rather than having that as an ability, it could be spell-like. Second level is the bark skin, create water, cure light wounds, and its reverse, cause light wounds, heat metal, obscuring mist. I mean, I can probably see writing something where something like obscuring mist happens. Produce flames, slow poison, warp wood. Questionable. Okay, would need to revise spell list. And actually, one thing I did think about is going back to Decipher's Lord of the Rings. I actually think that this book right here, Decipher's role-playing core book, did a pretty good job teasing out what type of magic there was in the Lord of the Rings. Because if the druid is like a Gandalf type figure, you might expect him to do kind of similar things. So I did think about kind of looking through this and getting kind of an inspiration for kinds of things that druids might be able to do. Revised spell list. Languages, they don't speak, the language of sylvan creatures, because there is none. Pass without trace, maybe. Pathfinding, maybe. Shape change, remove shape changing. But actually, what I think here, I think what might be better is the mage. From the Carcass Crawler. Because that one was very Gandalf-like. Right? So I wonder if there's some way to maybe mix both both the druid and mage together to come up with something that is that's much more Rabivania like. So like when we're taking a look at the mage, might be here. Oh, this is the one with the elves in it. Let me see if I can find that again. Well, can I just search for mage? Mage. Contains mage, please. Well, okay, but anyway, so that's the one that was most Gandalf-like. And I can completely see that working. I can also see one of them like having a magic sword or something like that. So I think that probably a blend of the mage and the druid could work. BGD says, one division I noticed between different RPGs is the same defined level progression in character is that some defined level progression in character generation when a PC gains all class features over time, like 5e, while others mandate specialization, like in the index card RPG. The difference is that some RPGs define level progression in character gen when a PC gains all class features over time. Oh. Yeah, like it's something more branching, like whether it's mandate specialization. And of course, some people, I guess, use that. So we've got one class, but okay, instead of having to create a whole bunch of different classes, we just have specializations of one type of class. Joel says, tying to the classic definition of druid prophecy, the advice could be a direction. And advice could be a direction. It would sort of predict functionally influencing the future or luck sort of things, either guaranteeing an outcome or allowing a reroll or something undesirable. Yeah, it's advice, but it's more than that. Like Gandalf kind of does that in a certain sense, I guess. Was there something else that was in here? I really wish I would be able to find that other carcass crawler, but I got a bunch of junk on my computer and in my inbox. It's here someplace, but I think that would... Let me look one more time. Scanning through here. Wait, I found it. Okay, so over here, we're talking about a mage, the mage character that they made. See, this is an arcane kind of creature. So what kind of, see, old school mages cannot memorize spells, but can cast arcane spells from scrolls. Cleric spell list, druid spell list, illusionist, magic user spell list. But they can cast arcane spells. I guess they're talking about magic user spells. Things like charm person, detect magic. Okay, something like floating disc doesn't work at all. Light or darkness, magic missile doesn't work. Shield probably does. Sleep, ventriloquism. Yes, some of these probably just really don't work. They do have healing here, so a little bit of healing is probably not bad for the druid. Mages can use staves and one-handed blades, but cannot wear armor. I kind of like that interpretation because I don't really see my druids, Rabivanian druids, out there in wearing armor, leather armor, and using shields and things like that. So let's say use the mage weapon restrictions. I think that works pretty well. Then they can do things like, okay, they do get an armor class bonus. Okay, that's fine. Detect magic. But see, I can see them like, okay, detecting magic and things like that. But is magic really there? Like, I want that to come up quite a bit too. That, okay, everybody believes this, but did this really happen, or was this just a coincidence or something? Whereas something in the world of Clovis, magic is much more well defined. Like magic is much more something that's happening because the tale of Clovis is their mythology. So they encounter a lot more magic in like a Clovician area adventure than they do in this particular timeline. Open and closing doors. Okay, that's obviously a Gandalf thing from Moria. But whereas like rally and fear, yeah, druids could be able to do that. Read magic, deciphering magical scripts and runes. Yeah, old text that works. Suggestion. Yeah, I can see that. On a successful check, a mage's words, or in this case, the druid's words, take on supernatural potency. This is actually kind of what Anon or Joel was just talking about, I think. Yeah. Giving them suggestion works. Giving their staff some magic powers, I think, is a good idea, or like some special powers in this case, because I want the druids, each druid's staff to be individual. So when you actually become a druid, and maybe that's something you only get at 3rd level or whatever, or if when you're trying to actually become a druid, your staff is something that is the emblem of your office, and it's individual to you. So it's kind of a big deal to get one. Scribing scrolls, that works. Stronghold. Yeah, okay. So I actually think a blend of those two classes would actually work pretty well. I like things that seem like magic, like a druid's ability to know where you are in the forest or which way is north. Right. So is that, yeah, they're going to tell you it's, or other people might even interpret that as magic. BGD says this difference in game's approach to PCs makes it a little more challenging to align your Rabivania conversions across rules, as you sort of need to pick a condensed down least common denominator. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of so maybe later I'll start writing. But actually, I got to work on videos and things like that. I got to work on the cultists this afternoon. But this was fun. It was actually a much needed break. Okay, I need to think about something else. Okay, right here. So we kind of got a handle on the kind of direction they want to go for the knight and for the druid, at least as far as the OSE goes. And that might be fun to write up. So that leaves us with the witch and more damsel to go to. So that sounds like fun. All right. Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me, everybody. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to go get some breakfast, and then I'm going to work on videos for the cultists. So hopefully you will see some videos on the shirts, like describe all the different shirts we've got, and also the miniatures coming on the cultist today. So, yep, hopefully we'll get to do a lot more. All right. Later, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Go forth, be creative, and be constructive. Later.